Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, the Electoral Commission has confirmed that some EU citizens living in the UK have been unable to vote in today's European Parliament elections. Let's bring in our senior correspondent, Ian Woods. What more do we know, Ian?
Well, it's officially widespread for it to be trending on Twitter under the hashtag #DeniedMyVote, with various people, European citizens who've turned up to try to vote today, being turned away for a variety of different reasons. Now, there are rules that govern, obviously, how people vote in European elections. Because it's a European-wide vote, you can vote in whichever country you happen to be living in. Even if you're an Italian citizen or a Polish citizen in Britain, you can vote in this country rather than your home country. Equally, British expats in Spain, for example, can choose whether they vote in Spain or cast their vote in the British end of the election. So obviously a lot of people who've been here for a number of years want to cast their vote in Britain. It's a particularly important election for reasons that we know of course. But they've been turning up today and been turned away for, as I say, a variety of different reasons. In some cases, they've been told they're not entitled to vote. Well, they are entitled to vote, but they've had to have filled in a form to effectively transfer their vote from their home country to the UK. This is the form that they have to fill in to do that. They have to sort of fill this in and send it off to their local council. Their local returning officer will deal with that. It's a pretty straightforward form to fill in. A lot of councils will actually send it out to people on request. Some people have said the forms didn't arrive on time. Some people say they filled in the forms and delivered them, and the council said they didn't process this on time. So the Electoral Commission has acknowledged that there is a problem, and what they're blaming is the very fact that this was an election that nobody really expected we'd be fighting. It was very much a last-minute decision because we didn't leave under the terms of Brexit that this election is going ahead at all in Britain. So they say that the very short notice from the government of the UK's participation in these elections impacted on the time available for awareness of this process among citizens and for citizens to complete the process. EU citizens' right to vote in the election in their home member state remains unaffected by the change in the UK's participation. In order to do so, they would need to be registered in that country in accordance with that country's process and timetable. Now, as I say, there have been enough cases that people are now trying to compile them and find out all the reasons behind it. Of course, there are plenty of people who are British citizens who sometimes have difficulty voting because they forgot to register to vote. You have to do that. You have to fill in a form every year. The council will often send them out to you. And one council spokesman said to me a short time ago, you know, we send out thousands of these forms every year. Because they're addressed to the householder, some people think they're junk mail and throw them away. And when they come to exercise their democratic right to vote, they discover they haven't maintained their position on the electoral register.
OK, we'll leave you to keep monitoring that, Ian. For now, thank you. Welcome back. Let's get more now on the news that the Electoral Commission has confirmed that some EU citizens living in the UK have been unable to vote in today's European Parliament elections. I'm joined now from East London by Emma Zurcher, a Dutch citizen who says she was told she's not allowed to vote. Thank you for joining us this afternoon and sharing your experience with us. Tell us what happened.
So I contacted my council here, local council, about a month ago just to register. I registered online and they sent me a form back asking for my passport, scan of my passport, just to confirm that I'm, Dutch national. Did that, called them to see whether there was anything else I needed to fill in. They said, no, just send this in, it's fine. Then it sent them another email asking if that was all okay. Got an email back saying that, and this was about a week ago, saying, actually, I can't vote because there was another form that I should have filled in. And they were then, in my opinion, audaciously enough to say that I should have seen that they'd posted it on social media. But obviously, because, well, I don't rely on my council, important council information to come via social media, I called them to ask specifically whether I needed to fill anything else in, and they hadn't told me. I had not filled this form in. So I can't vote. They told me I can't vote. From what I hear online, this is something that's happened to a lot of people now. This was actually asked. The Prime Minister was asked in Parliament what she was going to do about this, because it's not an unexpected issue. They knew this was going to be an issue because of the very late confirmation that these elections were going to be held. And she simply, she just did not respond to that. She didn't do anything about it. So now thousands, I think, hundreds or thousands of people are not allowed to vote because they didn't know about this form that councils were supposed to send out, were supposed to give to the EU citizens that were allowed to vote, but did not do.
And the person that you spoke to, did you get the sense from them that they accepted that there's an administrative error here?
So they, well, not really, to be honest. They told me that I should have looked at social media because that's what they apparently use to distribute important information. I'm not on most social media, so I didn't know. And I think that goes for most people. I don't think many people keep a record of their council's social media in order to know when and how to vote.
So what happens now? I mean, how do you feel with the possibility that you may not be able to vote in these European Parliament elections?
Well, I'm 100% can't vote. It's not a possibility at this point. I mean, it's disheartening and it's heartbreaking because these are very important elections for me as a citizen living in the UK, for all UK citizens, but also for the citizens of my home country, the Netherlands. It's heartbreaking that I'm not able to take part in something so important, even though I did my best to ask the council what I needed to do. This is not an oversight on my part. This is an oversight on the organisation of this election. And this is not something that Parliament didn't know about. And that's my shocking thing. They knew this was an issue and the Prime Minister ignored it.
It sounds like a crying shame. OK, Emma, really appreciate you talking to us about this. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks.
Emma Zurcher there, a Dutch citizen who can't vote in the European Parliament elections.
Now, voters in the UK have been going to the polls in the European parliamentary elections. Well, some of them have. Since the polls opened, dozens of frustrated EU citizens living in the UK have been taking to Twitter to complain that they were being turned away from polling stations because they hadn't completed the correct paperwork. The Electoral Commission has blamed the situation on the very short notice given for the European elections, which weren't supposed to happen because of Brexit. Jane Dodge has this report.
Moritz Valero turned up to vote at his local polling station in East London this morning. Originally from Germany, he's been living here for 5 years. He'd registered to vote and filled in the additional form required for European citizens. He says it was handed in well before the deadline. Tower Hamlets Council said it wasn't, and so he was turned away.
Democracy without a vote isn't a democracy in the first place. And also, it's the first time that the European voices will actually be heard after referendum in something that is decisive and not just a local election. And it's, I would say, the single most important vote for Europeans here living in this country right now.
So what was your reaction to be told you couldn't vote?
I was absolutely appalled.
Moritz Valero knew he had to fill in one of these forms to be able to vote. Some local councils sent them out by post, but others didn't, leaving many European citizens living here in the dark. Using the hashtag #DeniedMyVote, dozens went on Twitter to complain. The campaign group, the 3 Million, says hundreds of people have contacted them. In Haringey, Joseph Varga from Hungary was also turned away from the polling station. No one had told him he had to fill in the additional form to be able to vote. Is it that important to you to vote?
A little bit, but it's important. You know, like I said, now I can give my voice for something. You know, finally, I think this is important. But unfortunately, I've been turned down. Next time.
Today's problems prompted this plea in Parliament.
Can we have an early debate on the role and responsibilities of the government, the Electoral Commission and local authorities in ensuring that people who are legally entitled to vote are able to do so?
Local councils and the Electoral Commission have blamed the short notice given by the government that these elections would go ahead. And in a statement, the Electoral Commission said it had called for changes 5 years ago.
This legal process could be made easier for citizens, and the Commission made the case for doing so following the last EU elections in 2014. However, improvements to the process are reliant on changes to electoral law, which can only be taken forward by government and Parliament.
The government says there's been no change to the process and all the relevant information was available online. But campaigners remain frustrated.
So many people chose to vote here. In fact, some people changed their choice about this. They had intended to vote in the country of citizenship, to have a vote at all, but then when EU elections were announced for the UK, decided to do it here because this is their home and where they want to express their vote. So it's just really another really big hit for us, I think.
It's second time lucky for Moritz Valero. After making checks, Tower Hamlets Council has now agreed he did register on time and can vote.
I feel very privileged about being able to do this, and for me it is a big step to vote, and for me this is not just for me but also for the people who won't be able to vote today.
Campaigners and MPs say they still want an explanation for what one group described as a democratic disaster that had disenfranchised many.